Tomorrow gets it to White. White releases another three, and Milford absolutely scorching hot. Tamani feeling it now. That's his third three-pointer now. This has been a strong commitment to defense for the Hawks through this first half. And Kelly able to tip it in at the buzzer. The steal, Pasquette gets it back, tries to bank it off the glass and gets it in. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome inside the Milford High School Gymnasium as Milford TV is happy to bring you coverage of Scarlet Hawks athletics. This is Tim Coet on the call as we're here on our final day of the 2018-19 winter sports season. It is the last game of the year for the Scarlet Hawks boys basketball team, which means it is senior night here in the Milford Gymnasium. Still some sunshine splashing through the windows here as we are at 4:30 in the afternoon, so an early edition of senior night, but an opportunity for the seniors here for both the cheerleading squad and the boys basketball team to be recognized. And right now, Athletic Director Peter Boucher addressing the crowd, giving some acknowledgments to the seniors who are on hand here today. And it looks like we will start off with the cheerleaders, so we'll see the senior cheerleaders get acknowledged here one by one, and certainly always plenty of credit deserves to be given to this Milford High School cheerleading squad who has accomplished so much over the last decade, accomplishes so much, it seems like, each and every season. And so a quick photo op at midcourt for each of the cheerleaders before we move on to the boys basketball team. But the cheerleaders, 3 years running state champs, they just narrowly missed out on a four-peat this past fall, but of course, that with the fall cheerleading squad, the winter cheerleading squad here getting recognized on this senior day. And a nice moment for the parents as well. Always something that means so much to all of these individuals. And it looks like we'll get another round of congratulations here. And so those are your seniors on the cheerleading squad, and now comes the opportunity for each of the seniors to be recognized on the boys basketball team. There are three of them, and something we talked about as the season went along. Not a lot of upperclassmen on the varsity roster for the boys basketball team this season, but the seniors that were present throughout the duration of the year this year were incredible leaders for this team. A lot of work for these three seniors. Of course, Brendan Saylor getting recognized first. A transfer from St. John's, became part of this basketball program last season and certainly gained a lot of respect and trust from the players and also the coaches to warrant being named a captain on this team this year. Now Danny Corsini will have an opportunity to get a photo with his parents. Danny was technically not a captain for the team this year, but certainly brought a lot of leadership and a lot of heart to the team, and that really showed as the season went on. I think that a lot of times Danny was an unsung hero on this team this season, but did a lot of great work at times as that sixth man off the bench, and down the stretch here in the regular season was elevated to the starting five, and deservedly so. A great outside shooter, a great hustle player, brought a lot of intensity, a lot of energy, a lot of purpose to the floor. And so congratulations to Danny, and that leaves us, of course, with Brendan White. And those are going to be some massive shoes for Coach Seaver to fill, I should say, for next year's team. Brendan White, just an outstanding talent for this team. A three-year varsity player, was a bench player his sophomore season, but earned more and more playing time and has been a fixture in the starting lineup for both of his junior and senior years. And what an outstanding player Brendan has been. Will come very close to 800 points when all is said and done for his high school career. He's been a prolific scorer this season. the #2 scorer in the Hockomock League. So congratulations to Brendan White, Brendan Saylor, and Danny Corsini, the 3 seniors recognized here today. Also, congratulations to the senior cheerleaders as well. So that concludes a brief Senior Day ceremony here. And so we will pause now briefly, and we will get going with coverage of our final game of the winter sports season, as Milford will conclude their play in the Scarlet Hawk Classic tournament with a matchup against the Tantasqua Warriors. That comes up in just a little bit here on Milford TV. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome one more time inside the gymnasium at Milford High School, as Milford TV is happy to bring you coverage of Scarlet Hawks athletics. This is Tim Coet on the call as we bring you the final day of the 2018-19 edition of the Scarlet Hawk Classic, the 4th annual Scarlet Hawk Classic. And on this final day, we lead things off with the consolation game. And this consolation game featuring your Milford Scarlet Hawks taking on a very familiar opponent in this tournament in the Tantasqua Warriors. And before we get to the matchup here today, we have to take a look back at what was just an incredible finish to an incredible game that was played here 2 nights ago on Monday evening between Milford and Malden High School, playing in the evening game of day 1 of the Classic. And Milford was able to build up a lead early on in the game. They hovered around a double-digit lead at halftime. They were able to build the lead up to 8 points heading into the 4th quarter. They started out that 4th quarter on a quick 5-0 run that seemed to really put the team in the driver's seat, but from there, Malden was able to completely turn the game around after being frustrated through a lot of the night. Every time Milford seemed to have an answer when they tried to go on a run, but all of that changed in the 4th quarter, as after that 5-0 run to open the 4th quarter, Malden was able to limit Milford to just 5 points through the rest of the way in the 4th, and they were able to make an incredible comeback, capped off by a 3-pointer with just 20 seconds left in regulation to force overtime. Milford did hold a lead through the majority of that overtime period, but once again, in crunch time, Malden was able to come back and do what they needed to do to eventually earn a 66-63 overtime victory over Milford. So for the first time since the inception of this tournament, Milford will not play for the trophy. Instead, here in the consolation game, where they will face off against Tantasqua. Now, somehow it seems only right that Milford faces off against Tantasqua, as they have played the Warriors in every year since this tournament has began. Tantasqua has been kind enough to participate in this tournament each season. There have been a couple of times that Milford has squared off against Tantasqua for the championship, but today the 2 teams will play for the consolation game, as Tantasqua ended up meeting in day 1 of the tournament against Wellesley High School, and Wellesley was able to take care of business, a comfortable victory. So these 2 teams match up in the consolation game, and they will get things started here with the opening tip in just a few short minutes, and we'll have all of the action for you coming up right here on Milford TV. And welcome right back inside the Milford gym. It is time to get this game started on the final day of the regular season for basketball in the winter sports season. Time flying quickly once again, and unfortunately no playoffs to look forward to in basketball for either the boys or the girls this season, but the boys looking to finish out strong with a victory here today against Tantasqua. And your starting 5s for the 2 teams. For Tantasqua, it is Jackson Hall, Chase Freeland, Jeremiah Dingy, Hayden Peterson, and Brad Gregoire. And for Milford, it is Danny Corsini, Brendan White, Brendan Saylor, Colby Perez, and Jordan Darling. No Dom Schofield in the starting lineup, and we do not see Dom on the bench as well. It did look like Schofield got a little banged up late in that game against Malden. Had to come out with a back injury, did come back in for a few minutes in overtime, but not sure if that injury is related to why the Milford big man is not available here today. But Jordan Darling in the starting lineup. And so Milford a bit undersized here against the Tantasqua Warriors, as we see some quick up and down the floor action through these first couple of possessions. And our first foul will go against Tantasqua's Chase Freeland, one of the 4 captains of this Tantasqua squad. Freeland along with Jackson Hall, Jeremiah Dingy, and Hayden Peterson. So 4 of the starting 5, all captains. Darling opening the Milford scoring at the free throw line. And Darling going 2 for 2. The sophomore who was in the starting lineup through much of the season. More on that after this, as Corsini makes the steal, but then gets called for the travel. And so Tantasqua gets bailed out. And again, going for the steal, nearly has it. The ball loose on the floor. They call for the jump ball, And again, Tantasqua will get bailed out, but Corsini's been reading these inbounds passes very well. Milford putting all kinds of pressure on, now trapping the ball handler in the corner. Eventually the Warrior is able to escape. Now Darling able to jar the ball loose, and it ends up going out of play. And Tantasqua ball with 23 seconds on the shot clock, but it's been an adventure just getting this ball into the front court for the Warriors. And finally Milford slinks back. Good play inside for Milford. It ends up setting up the outside shot for Chase Freeland, and he's able to knock it down. And now the long lead pass ahead to Corsini, and Corsini gets hacked on the way up. Danny's really been in the middle of it through these early minutes. A second foul called against the Warriors. This time it's Brad Gregoire getting the foul called. Corsini and Darling out there together. It's been an interesting development late in the season. Darling was the starter through most of the year, then Corsini ended up really forcing the issue with his good play, getting himself into that starting lineup, and Darling ended up serving more of a sixth-man role. Now the ball loose, it gets tipped into the backcourt, now still up for grabs, where finally Brendan Saylor will settle it. Milford ready to leave it all out there in this last game of the season. A good block underneath the hoop by Hayden Peterson. Peterson and Gregoire with some good height out there for the Warriors. Something Milford is going to have a hard time matching here today without the presence of Schofield. You wonder if we'll see a little bit more of Ralph Franklin Jr. as this game goes on. Uncontested shot from the free throw line does not land for Peterson. And Brendan White getting the rebound. Up and under move from Brendan Saylor, unable to finish. And a 4-3 score with Milford in a 1-point advantage. The inbounds pass goes all the way to the corner for a quick release. No good. The second chance points not there for the Warriors, and finally the ball ends up out of play. Milford will inbound with 5:48 to go. A quiet crowd here, and what was a bit of an unusual start time. And of course, before we get too deeper into this game, we have to absolutely mention, after the miss from Corsini, that the Milford Lady Scarlet Hawks basketball team was on the court even earlier today, a 2:30 tip-off with Burncoat High School in a non-conference game to close out their schedule. And the Lady Hawks were able to come through with a convincing victory. And we want to give congratulations to the girls coming away with a win on their last day of the season to avoid a winless season. So a well-deserved victory after a season of a lot of hard work put in by those girls. We unfortunately could not be here for that early start time, but congratulations nonetheless. A nice win to build on going into the offseason. After a long break between points here in this boys game, Jeremiah Dingy for Tantasqua able to give the Warriors a 6-4 lead. All the points on threes on the Tantasqua side through this first quarter. Now, defender losing his footing for Tantasqua, and the miss outside from Saylor. The ball knocked out of play. It will stay Milford ball. Milford was absolutely shooting the lights out from long range in the first half of the game against Malden last week. And then for one reason or another, Milford really abandoned that long-range game in the second half and allowed Malden to stay afloat long enough, and eventually they were able to orchestrate just an incredible comeback. And for a team that needed wins in both days of this tournament in order to make their way into the MIAA playoffs, as we mentioned a couple of times during that broadcast. So Malden, who will take on Wellesley for the Scarlet Hawk Classic title later on tonight, will also be playing for their MIAA playoff lives. So something for the spectators of the evening game to be aware of. And Jackson Hall, the third captain to drain a 3 in this first quarter for the Warriors, as they now open up a 9-4 advantage. And Saylor able to break up the run and give Milford their first points from the field in this first quarter. Cuts it back down to a one-possession game as the threes will keep raining down on the Tantasqua side. A couple of chances and nothing doing. Now Perez pushes the floor in transition, able to get his own rebound, can't put the second chance effort in. Took a lot of contact, but no whistle. And now a hard block on the other end of the floor. Jordan Darling getting called for the foul. Darling having to play more of the 5 tonight. The first free throw is a miss from Jeremiah Dingy. A substitution on the Tantasqua side, Griffin Polga coming into the game, replacing Hayden Peterson. Up to a 4-point lead now for Tantasqua, looking to do something that they have not been able to do in each of the previous 3 years that they've participated in this tournament. As we mentioned off the top, Milford has played Tantasqua in each of the 3 previous incarnations of this tournament. And every year, not only has Milford come out on top, but it has not been particularly close, as Danny Corsini puts one in from way downtown to cut it to a 1-point game. The average margin of victory for Milford against Tantasqua in their 3 previous meetings has been 18 points. So they have all been runaways. We'll see if Tantasqua can change that here today. But you know Milford does not want to go out on a 3-game losing streak to end this season. Certainly disappointment after the loss to Canton, and then a loss in the final seconds and in overtime to Malden earlier this week. Wanting to end the season on a high note. These 3 seniors want to end their high school careers on a high note. Saylor in some trouble trying to get that pass away to the corner for Corsini, but it ends up out of play. 2:31 to go in the first quarter, still just a 1-point Tantasqua lead. Milford with some pressure in the backcourt. And for some help was Jackson Hall. And now, again, the 3 put up by the Warriors, no good. They put it back in the hands of Freeland, now to the corner. And down low. I believe that was Polga who was able to elevate over 4 defenders in front. And you can see now Coach Seaver not liking the height disadvantage that Milford has out there right now. So we will see Ralph Franklin Jr. in this game momentarily. That pass a little offline, but Will Brzezinski was able to pick it up. Corsini with the tip. That ball going out of play. It will stay with Tantasqua. .90 seconds to go in the first quarter. The shot clock winds down. 3 seconds. Someone's going to have to put up the shot, and Milford instead gets the steal. Here's Saylor ahead. Has 1 man to beat. Could not elevate for the layup, but Franklin gets the rebound. Now Corsini starts and stops. Now sends it back out to Saylor, who loses track of it. Gets it back just in time for Coach Seaver to call the timeout. And so that stops the clock with 1 minute and 10 seconds to go in the first quarter, with Milford trailing Tantasqua by a score of 12-9. Stay tuned to our coverage here of Milford High School Athletics on Milford TV. Milford with the ball and just over a minute to play in the first quarter. And Milford gets called for the foul, the offensive foul under the basket, as they're trying to toss that one up to Brendan White. And more pressure. And now Brendan Saylor getting called for the foul. So a couple of quick fouls in succession for the Scarlet Hawks. Saylor's first foul of the game. Of course, as part of the drama at the end of that game against Malden on Monday, both teams' top scorers ended up fouling out, including Brendan White, who just grabbed his first bucket of this game. Brendan Saylor also fouled out of that game. So Milford really trying to piece it together, especially in the overtime, very short-handed. As I mentioned, Dom Schofield got banged up towards the end of that game as well. 25 seconds left in this first quarter. Milford again cutting it back down to a one-point game. Shot clock winding down for Tantasqua. Contested shot under the basket is no good. White now will lob it ahead to Corsini. And Corsini, they'll count the bucket. Little stutter step out of Corsini. Danny right now leading the charge offensively for Milford with 7 points, a chance for another one here at the free throw line. And gets it to rattle through. Milford 5 out of 5 at the free throw line in this first quarter. 7 seconds left for Tantasqua as Milford takes their first lead since early on in this first quarter, and they'll hold on to it. Off the missed shot for Tantasqua, Ralph Franklin collecting the defensive rebound, and that concludes the first 8 minutes of play here in the Milford gym. And the Scarlet Hawks now on top of Tantasqua by a score of 14-12. Second quarter action comes up next here on Milford TV. Second quarter in Milford. The Scarlet Hawks with a 2-point lead. Nice offensive start to the game for Danny Corsini, who right now leads the Milford scoring attack. Ben Blanchard on the floor for the first time, puts up a three. White able to track down the rebound, but trying to walk the tightrope on the sideline. Shuffling the pass off to Franklin, who could not hold on to it. But now White able to grab the defensive rebound on the other side of the floor, ahead with some speed. Can't get the bank off the glass. Franklin with his fingertips on it, and Milford now able to reset. And Saylor making some fancy moves on the way to the basket and finishes with the layup. Breaking ankles on the way to the hoop. That got this crowd energized. Now a wide open lane to the basket for Tantasqua, but Dingy couldn't finish off the shot. And Milford again closes off the possession with a quick defensive rebound. The lead up to 16-12, looking to build on it. The gym with some life for the first time all game, as now Saylor gets a friendly bounce to give him 4 quick points in this second quarter, and that forces the first time out of the game taken by the Warriors. Milford on a run to open up this second quarter. They now open up an 18-12 lead on the Warriors. Continuing coverage of Milford High School boys basketball right here on Milford TV. Second quarter continues here for Milford. 4 points on a Brendan Saylor in this period. Milford now up to a 6-point lead, their biggest so far of this game. A fresh shot clock here for the Warriors as they send it back in underneath their own basket. Saylor nearly pulling off the steal at midcourt. Jeremiah Dingy almost losing the feet. Able to keep his balance, get the pass away. Now the release for Jackson Hall, short. And now Saylor in transition. Nice bounce pass ahead to Franklin, but he gets blocked on the back end. Even better defensive play for the Warriors. Now a numbers advantage for Tantasqua, but they missed the layup. And now no-look pass ahead to Blanchard. Perez back in the game. Now Saylor releases it, and the deep three bounces in, bounces out, and then back through. And Saylor with all 7 points in this second quarter so far. Milford now up to a 9-point lead. Now flat-footed shot, and it lands for Hayden Peterson. He had been the only of Tantasqua's 4 captains not to score in the first quarter. Grabs the bucket to end the Milford run. Now here's Blanchard again with the high arcing shot, a little short, but he's able to pull down his own rebound. And they send it back out to Saylor to reset. Now Brendan White. 2 more points for Brendan. He has 4 in this first half. And for Brendan White, it has been a lot of times in the second half in which he has really started to rake in the points. We'll see if that holds true in this game as well. Ralph Franklin Jr., meanwhile, trying to find that touch under the rim. He's gotten himself in good position a couple of times since he's been in the game, but has not been able to finish. About to see a heavy dose of Milford subs in just a moment as Matt Vardaresian, Jordan Darling, and Danny Corsini all sit perched at the scorer's table. Here's White. He'll release a quick 3. Now 5 points in this second quarter as Milford starts to really settle in. Now the block and a little contact made. They end up calling the foul on Colby Perez. It looked like Ralph Franklin reacted as if the foul had been called on him initially, but instead Perez gets called for his first foul. And so now we will see the changes made as Darling, Corsini, and Vardaresian will join Perez and White. And now Brendan White gets called for the travel. Milford with pressure. And Perez and Darling nearly getting the steal, but instead Tantasqua escapes, and it leads to an easy lay-in for Griffin Polga. Back down to a single-digit Milford lead as now Tantasqua goes for the steal. Troy Lee knocking that ball out of play. Vardaresian getting blanketed by Jeremiah Dingy. The Tantasqua bench trying to bring the energy level up for their players on the court for this final 3 minutes and 20 seconds of the first half. Jordan Darling having a hard time getting away from Troy Lee. And he ends up getting fouled. And with this season starting to wind down for the Scarlet Hawks, you can't help but start to think about where this team is going to be next season, and the Holes to fill, there aren't a lot of them, but the ones that are going to need to be filled are going to be difficult ones to fill. Mainly they're going to need to find someone who can pick up the scoring of Brendan White, who of course, again, has been one of the top 2 scorers in the league all season long. And that might not necessarily come from one player. They're going to have to find a couple of players who are going to have to take that next leap forward in their offensive game. They're also going to need to find a new starting point guard, which at this point you would think Matt Vardaresian is going to be the leader in the clubhouse for that spot. And they're going to need to find some consistent outside shooting help, something that Danny Corsini has provided so well for this team this season. And there's no question that you can see the potential when you watch players like Ben Blanchard on the floor, and even Jordan Darling, players like Darling who have seen a lot of playing time, certainly have a lot of room to grow. You think about the big leaps that we've seen out of Milford players in the past from their sophomore to junior seasons playing at the varsity level. Caden Kelly being one of those players, Zach Tamani. Brendan White himself went from a bench player to a leading scorer in a year's time. So we see those jumps happen all the time, and certainly a lot of candidates to do just that. A 28-18 Milford lead as Corsini narrowly misses another 3. And now a hard foul as Darling was able to get the feet set and gets the charge. Brendan Saylor back out on the floor. Milford back with their original starting 5. Here's White with a little space from the far wing, and he nails his second 3 of the second quarter, up to 8 points in the second period, 10 points in the half. And so looks like it did not take until the second half for White to really start to light up the score sheet. Saylor again getting free from his defender. Saylor has been impressive. Now 9 points in the second quarter. He has 11 for the half. The 2 senior captains really shining in their final game so far. And Milford really starting to expand this lead. Corsini lands the shot, and a chance to make it a 3-point play. Corsini also with a great first half. He is now in double figures with 10 points. So all 3 seniors into double digits. In fact, the 3 seniors have been responsible for all but 2 of the points that Milford has scored in this first half. Jordan Darling with a couple of free throws in the first quarter. Other than that, it has been all the seniors. Troy Lee with his first bucket of the half brings Tantasqua's point total up to 20. As now we go inside the final 60 seconds of the half. Milford with an even 15-point lead now. Here's Darling. Now, Tantasqua in all kinds of trouble right on the near sideline. Able to escape for a moment. Now the whistle. And with the Warriors in trouble, their coaching staff calling the timeout, so that stops the clock with 43.6 seconds to go in the half. Again, a 15-point lead for the Scarlet Hawks here on Senior Day, on the final day of the season. And the coverage continues right here on Milford TV. Back for the conclusion of the first half. Just 40 seconds to go. As Saylor hits White with the bounce pass, but goes in and out of the hands. White usually sure-handed on those plays, and of course, used to receiving passes on the football field as well, but that time it slipped past him. Now, nifty shot attempt by Tantasqua, no good. Now they'll sling it back around the perimeter into the hands of Dingy. He'll release it from 3. Offline rebound pulled down by Troy Lee. And now kicked back outside, 15 seconds to go. Dingy again will try it from 3-point range. Again, no good. But that size of Tantasqua keeping this possession alive. And now the long 2, no good. Darling finally pulls down the rebound. In some trouble, here's Perez. Gets it in the hands of Corsini at the buzzer and off the side of the rim. And the senior making a bid to finish this half with a flourish, but nonetheless, Milford doing some excellent work in this second quarter. Again, it's been the 3 seniors who have done it almost exclusively in this first half, building up a 35-20 lead for the Scarlet Hawks. So 2 quarters down, just 2 to go on this regular season for Milford. We will have the start of the third quarter in just a moment. Stay with us here on Milford TV. Once again, we welcome you inside the Milford Gymnasium as we begin second half coverage of this day 2 of the Scarlet Hawk Classic tournament. Milford and Tantasqua playing in the consolation game after both teams came up short on night 1. But tonight, Milford with a 15-point lead over the Tantasqua Warriors, and now a turnover thanks to an athletic play diving on the floor from Brendan White. Milford grabs possession. White releases a 3, no good. But we mentioned it right prior to the half. It's the 3 seniors who have almost single-handedly given Milford this big lead. 11 points each from Saylor and Corsini, 10 points from Brendan White, and 3 points all from the free throw line from Jordan Darling. Now White forces his way inside, again can't finish, now gets locked up for the rebound, and ends up letting it go out of play right there at the end as he lost his footing. The leading scorer on the Tantasqua side is Jeremiah Dingy with 6 points. And now another miss. Tantasqua got very cold shooting the ball at the end of the second quarter, and that helped Milford start to build up the lead. Saylor now with the first bucket of the second half. And now Brendan White unable to quite get position. He gets taken down hard as Jackson Hall came flying in. That's just White's first foul. And Tantasqua taking a lot of time. Corsini was there in position to try to make the steal. Just got the fingertips on it, but Tantasqua was able to eventually scoop up the ball, and now the ball loose on the end line. And this time it will be Milford to inbound. About a minute and a half into this second half. In a game that will bring an end to basketball here in the Milford gym for another year. Season getting started in early December. Quite a memorable season of basketball for the Scarlet Hawks boys team. Disappointment for sure not to make it into the playoffs. Frustration, certainly a word to use to describe this season, in thinking about what might have been if a few things had broken differently for the team. A lot of close games, a lot of tough finishes to some games in which Milford led. As Jeremiah Dingy picks up the first Tantasqua bucket of this third quarter. But in the end, you saw a lot of young players make a lot of progress, and that will only continue for next season. Milford getting called for the travel. Just a couple of juniors on this roster for the Scarlet Hawks. Of course, most notably Colby Perez, Tyler Weatherby, and Sean Brickley, also juniors. Perez will return for a second year as a captain after getting elevated to that status early on in the regular season. Corsini and Saylor a chance for the bucket. Now White will send it back outside. Corsini again. This time he gets it from three-point range. And up to 14 points now for Corsini. Think back to that game earlier this season. I believe it was against Westboro back on December 21st, where Corsini absolutely shot the lights out and ended up with somewhere in the neighborhood, I believe, of 21 points. But certainly having another outstanding game here tonight to conclude his high school career. Couple of misses at the line. And Milford back up the floor with just over 5 minutes to play in the third. Lob into White. And White gets contacted. Troy Lee feeling as though he had position. Kept those arms outstretched for a good several moments for dramatic effect, but he ends up picking up his second foul of the game. So White's first shots from the line tonight. Milford right now shooting a perfect 9 for 9 from the free throw line. Now getting the steal from Colby Perez and eventually getting the alley-oop play to Brendan White. Milford tried to execute that in the first half. They end up getting it now off the steal. And now White tips another pass, another steal. Now Corsini tries to get the bank. White continuing to work hard for the rebound, down flat on his back. And I believe Milford was able to get the timeout call in time. White getting more praise from his teammates on the sidelines. That's just the kind of hard-nosed effort that we have come to admire and respect out of Brendan White throughout his career. Again, you take a look at the numbers in the Hockomock League coming into this week. Brendan White second among scorers, averaging 17.2 points per game. I believe he has averaged just about a double-double per night. He has raked in the rebounds as well. And again, talking to Coach Seaver prior to Monday night's game, he had said depending on where White's point totals were in these final two games, he could get very close to 800 points for his varsity career. Very difficult to achieve that 1,000-point threshold if you are not a four-year varsity player. And for White, he did join the varsity team in his sophomore year. You think back to 4 years ago, how loaded the varsity team was around that time. Hard to crack that varsity roster, but White, again, providing that energy presence off the bench his sophomore year, and then these last two seasons has shown the coaching staff what a gifted scorer he can be. Coach Seaver even admitting to me, perhaps I should have given him a few more minutes in that sophomore season. As Jackson Hall puts in his second three of the game. 44-25. Milford maintaining a comfortable lead at 19 points, but you know Milford is not going to take their foot off the gas pedal for the remainder of this game, knowing what happened on Monday night, not to mention what has happened all too many times over the course of the season. Jordan Darling, good hustle to get that rebound, and there is Brendan Saylor. And this certainly shaping up to be one of Sailor's finest offensive games of the season, now up to 16 points. Out on the perimeter now for Tantasqua. They have been out of sorts trying to find an answer offensively since the first quarter. Perez trying to strip that ball loose from behind. He ends up picking up the foul. He doesn't like the call. That will send Hayden Peterson to the line. The third straight miss from the line for Tantasqua in the second half. The Warriors have had a very good season. They are 13-2 overall on the year. They currently reside in first place in the Southern Worcester County League. So they will be in the tournament. And they're a team that has typically accumulated a lot of wins in the regular season. But you certainly have to look at the level of competition in the SWCL versus the Hockomock League. You look at some of the other teams in that Southern Worcester County League. Bartlett in second place at 10-6, and everyone else under 500. Leicester at 6-10, Southbridge at 5-11, David Prouty High School at 3-10, and Quaboag Regional at 1-18. But nonetheless, Tantasqua taking care of business against the schedule put in front of them, and they'll have an opportunity to continue on in the MIAA tournament. And so depending on how things finish up in the championship game later on tonight, if Malden ends up coming away with the victory, then that means that the only team participating in the Scarlet Hawk Classic that will not move on to the MIAA playoffs is the host team, Milford. Shot clock winding down right at the buzzer. The shot no good, and Brendan White able to secure the rebound. And White, fancy spin move, and then gets the foul. And it looks like they'll call it again on Troy Lee, so he now picks up his third. Colby Perez getting a rest and into the game now. Another one of those aforementioned juniors, Tyler Weatherby. There has to be a part of Coach Seaver on the sidelines right now saying to himself, where has this free throw shooting been throughout the regular season? Milford continues to be perfect. And now White after the steal can't finish. And the rebound secured by Austin Varney. Now trying to set Jackson Hall up from three. Instead now dribbles inside. They send it back to the corner. And it rims out. The rebound there for Tantasqua. Then Weatherby able to steal it. And he gets the pass away to Corsini. Now has it poked loose. And a scrum on the floor. And a jump ball will keep it with Milford. And it looks like they're going to give a technical. And some good sportsmanship showing through after the fact, as it looked like Corsini and Austin Varney got tangled up on the floor going for the basketball. Corsini making sure his opponent knew that he did not feel there was any ill will there, but the officials electing to call the technical. White will make the shots. And that ends the perfect free throw shooting night. Milford making 11 straight before missing that one, and White now able to make the second. He's made 5 out of 6 in this third quarter alone. And the Hawks now up to 50 points on the night. Big 24-point lead, so all of a sudden now what was a highly competitive first quarter, Milford ended up eking out a 2-point lead after the first quarter, but it has been all Scarlet Hawks since then. We thought maybe this was going to break the trend of one-sided final scores between Milford and Tantasqua, but shaping up to be another Hawks blowout. White releases the 3, no good, and then the foul call. They end up waving off the shot, as it turns out. So the foul called on Ralph Franklin Jr., who now has 3 fouls in the game. And White trying to get position on Jackson Hall, but he's able to knock down the shot. All the points for Jackson Hall in this game have been on threes. He's knocked down a trio of them, but regardless, it's still a 21-point lead for the Scarlet Hawks as timeout is called for on the floor with just 1 minute and 24 seconds left in the third quarter. And this coverage of Milford Scarlet Hawks boys basketball on Milford TV. Milford with the ball back onto the timeout. They try to trap Saylor in the corner, but he gets the pass away to White, who advances into the front court. The 3 seniors still out there playing with Ralph Franklin Jr. and Tyler Weatherby as we come down to the final minute of play in the third quarter. And Corsini, another 3, no good. White tries to track the rebound to the corner, kicks out a play off of Tantasqua. Saylor taking his time now, tries to lob it to Corsini, but that good height down low for Tantasqua playing in their favor. And we're going to see another foul called on Franklin, and that is now his 4th. And quickly now off the bench, we see Kevin O'Connor. As Jackson Hall connects on the first free throw now, Franklin to the bench and Kevin O'Connor into the game. I don't believe we have seen Kevin in game action in any of our Milford TV broadcasts this year, but another sophomore getting some game action here on the final day of the season. And that pass off the mark, a little lack of communication between Saylor and Weatherby. And now a 3 put up by Jeremiah Dingies, who has been quiet since gathering 6 points in the first half, but there is Will Piksinski. Gets his first points of the game. Now the deflection, and Tantasqua trying to put some points here together at the close of the third quarter. They've cut the deficit to 17. It was all the way up to 24 a couple of minutes ago. Coach Seaver continuing to operate with the same level of intensity as he has throughout this season. Now, just 5 seconds left for Tantasqua to try to put one in here. They'll go with the fadeaway shot from Hall. It's no good. Rebound for Brendan Saylor, and that concludes things here for the third quarter. So Milford will carry that 17-point lead into the fourth. Just 8 minutes to go in this winter sports season. We will have the fourth quarter when we return next here on Milford TV. Just 8 minutes left in this consolation game of the Scarlet Hawk Classic. No trophy for Milford this season. The first time in the 4-year existence of this tournament that Milford will not come away with a win. And meanwhile, Austin Varney, who got that technical in the third quarter, getting a little bit physical with Brendan White on this opening possession of the fourth. And now a whistle again, stopping the clock. Just 15 seconds into this fourth quarter action. Milford will inbound under the basket with a fresh shot clock. And meanwhile, Milford unable to get that inbounds pass. And so they turn it over. At least one of the teams that will play in the championship round of the Scarlet Hawk Classic coming up in a little bit is in the building. I believe Wellesley entered the gym shortly before the conclusion of the third quarter. Wellesley taking on Malden. And now Piksinski trying to make some slick moves to the rim, but could not finish. And now Brendan Saylor turning it over again. So Milford a little sloppy here in this first minute of the fourth. Kevin O'Connor remaining out there for Milford, guarding the inbounds pass. Now again, they put it in the hands of Piksinski. Now the three off the back of the rim. Rebound for Brendan White. Hits Corsini in stride, who lays it in on the other end of the floor. 16 points now for Corsini. And Jeremiah Dingy responds on the other end of the floor with the three. His first points of the second half. Now here's O'Connor up the floor. Tries for the up fake, now in some trouble. Able to get the pass away to Perez, who resets it at the point. 15 seconds on the shot clock. Now to Perez in the corner. To Corsini, he has some space. A little short on the three. Rebound now up for grabs. And nothing but green jerseys there to fall on it, but Brendan White not giving up. And eventually they do call for the jump ball. So it stays with Milford. Quick substitution here as O'Connor heads back to the bench. Jordan Darling back out on the floor. Here's White trying to fight through a double team and gets called for the travel. The lead for Milford at 16 with 6:28 to play. This fourth quarter starting to take on a little bit of a similar feel to some fourth quarters from throughout this season. There is Piksinski with another bucket. Cuts it down to 14. Still a large lead, but we have seen larger leads slip away in fourth quarters throughout this season as White misses the layup, and Milford with just 2 points so far. And you can make it now an 8-2 run for the Warriors to open up this fourth. White ends up finishing off the three-point play. Now 6 for 7 from the line. Now the Euro step and the finish for Chase Freeland. 4 quick points in this fourth quarter. So some new life out of Tantasqua, coupled with, again, some careless play out of the Scarlet Hawks. So a 13-point lead with 5.5 minutes to go. And you have to imagine that there's a little bit of a feeling in the back of the minds of these players, whether they'd admit it or not, of here we go again when a fourth quarter starts to take on this kind of complexion. We've seen it happen so many times, and again, just 2 nights ago, a prime example. Chase Freeland knocked down a three-pointer early in the first quarter, and those were his only points of the game until this last 60-second stretch, where all of a sudden now he's come to life with 6 points. And it's down to an 11-point lead, a game that was, it seemed like a no-doubter late in the third quarter, but all of a sudden now Tantasqua has made this a basketball game, and you can right now see all of the energy on the Tantasqua side of the floor, the bench on their feet. Coach Seaver now sending Ralph Franklin Jr. back out onto the floor. He has 4 fouls in the game. Colby Pires on the bench after getting called for his 3rd foul. The free throw shooting has been much better so far in this fourth quarter for Tantasqua. A chance to make it a single-digit deficit, but the miss on the second shot for Lee, so it stays an 11-point lead for now. Here's Corsini. Move around one defender, but the off-balance shot. Rebound for Franklin. Now up top for 3 from Brendan Saylor. Milford called for another foul under their own basket. 4:58 to go, and all of a sudden, this fourth quarter clock feeling very, very long. Milford up to 10 fouls now in the second half, so they'll reset it now for free throws for Will Peksinski. And now the lead down to 9 with 1 free throw to go. Right now, Tantasqua outscoring Milford in this fourth quarter 14-5. Trying to find a big shot that can bring some momentum back. Here's Darling. He takes it to the rack. And there's Darling's first points from the field tonight. His first points since the first half. Now Peksinski for 3 offline. White with the rebound. These 3 seniors now trying to settle into the groove that they were in through much of the night. And Chase Freeland going to the floor with a flourish, but the officials not biting. Back up to a 10-point lead, a chance for Saylor to tack on. Had the feeling like this fourth quarter was going to be a victory lap for the Scarlet Hawks, but instead a battle to the finish. Saylor goes 2 for 2 from the line, and it's been free throws right now that have been the huge plus in Milford's favor. Again, they've only missed one from the line so far in this entire game. That has helped them stay afloat, especially right now where a lot has started to go wrong. But in the end right now, back up to a 12-point lead with 4 minutes and 25 seconds to go. So can they right the ship and close out this game? We'll find out when we come back after the timeout here on Milford TV. Coach Seaver using every second during that timeout to rally the troops. Wanting to see a strong finish here over this final 4 minutes and 25 seconds. And Brendan White right on cue, able to get the steal off the inbounds. And back out to the point. Now Darling cutting into the basket, has his shot blocked. The height for Tantasqua has not come into play quite as much as we thought off the top of this game, with Milford playing without Dom Schofield here today. But we've seen it start to be a bit of a factor here as the second half has gone on. Milford a chance to go back to the free throw line. Now 8 fouls for Tantasqua. Jordan Darling has gone 3 for 3 from the line tonight. So Milford 15 of 17 shooting free throws. Saylor getting it back in to Colby Perez, and now Saylor goes up and over Chase Freeland, but no good on the shot. And up the floor comes Tantasqua with speed. 3:41 to go, out for 3, and count it for Jackson Hall. If I'm not mistaken, all 12 of Jackson Hall's points have come courtesy of the 3-ball. Saylor in some trouble, just barely getting the pass away to Darling, and now Perez. And that is just Colby Perez's first points of the game. An 11-point lead now for the Hawks, ticking down to 3 minutes to play. Another 3 released by Tantasqua, no good. And now White on a 3-on-1 up the floor, and he uses Corsini to finish. And the lead is 13. Tantasqua will keep tossing up the threes and ends up working out in Milford's favor, as they've had a couple of misses here, resulting in a couple of quick trips up the floor. But now a chance at the free throw line. Some offensive rebounding that time for the Warriors. Three for 3 from the line in this fourth quarter for Will Piksinski. And the lead back down to 11 with 2:44 to go. They try to trap in the backcourt. The pass ahead to Perez. Perez finding Saylor, who gets rejected on the way up for the shot. Now Perez back defensively, a little vulnerable. Now they settle it up for Chase Freeland. His outside shooters coming alive. And they quickly wave off that bucket as Brendan White committed the foul. White now has, or I beg your pardon, now they call the foul on the floor, so the foul going against Chase Freeland, my apologies. Freeland with 4 fouls. And the scoreboard now catches up, so 66-55. Big three-point play finished off by Danny Corsini, and now the travel on the other end for Tantasqua. "21 points in the game for Danny Corsini. That leads all scorers. White has 20 points. Under 2 minutes to go. Milford starting to close in on a season finale victory. Corsini up for the three, just offline. The pace of this game has slowed considerably here in the fourth quarter. We're about 40 minutes away from the two teams taking the floor for the Scarlet Hawk Classic title game. You can start to see now some of the Wellesley players loosening up on the sidelines. Troy Lee at the free throw line misses his first. That time, the foul was called on Brendan White, who now has 4 fouls in the game. Something he wants to be careful of here in the final minute and 36 seconds, not wanting to foul out of his final game. Good pass over to Jordan Darling. He misses on the three. And you have to wonder if that will be a part of Jordan's game that he will work on in the offseason, trying to find more of that long-range shooting game. He's got a lot of tools under the basket. Certainly a lot of athleticism. Brendan Saylor slices through a double team in the backcourt, now lifts it up and in. And now tries to get position on the other side of the floor. That's just the second foul for Saylor. Jeremiah Dingy shooting free throws with his team trailing by 13 with just 1:06 left to go. This fourth quarter has had a strange feel to it. Milford had really energized the crowd in that third quarter, but building the lead back up here late, and now a round of applause for Brendan Saylor as Coach Seaver takes him out of the game, gives him a chance to get recognition from this crowd. Matt Vardaresian into the game. And now Danny Corsini will get the same opportunity, gets a hug from the head coach. Brendan White remaining on the floor now with just under 60 seconds left. White may be looking for one final basket. Colby Perez offline on the shot. And now here comes the round of applause for Brendan White. With 43.5 seconds left, he will leave the court with the biggest round of applause of the game. A player who will be long remembered for his contributions on the basketball court. So all juniors and sophomores on the floor now for the Scarlet Hawks. Darling losing his footing under the basket. It stays a 68-56 score, just 18 seconds left. As the chant of "Thank you, seniors" rises up from the student section. Ben Doros checking into the game for the first time on the Tantasqua side, knocking down the three to cut it back down to a single-digit lead, but with just 14 seconds left, so one final timeout here. I believe it was called by Tantasqua. Certainly take quite an effort here for the Warriors to come through with 9 points in just 14 seconds, but talking over one final bit of strategy. And the Scarlet Hawks in the huddle for the last time in this 2018-19 season. As we've mentioned throughout, it's been an entertaining year, wins and losses. Regardless of the outcome at the end, we've seen nothing but entertaining ball games. Every time we have come here to the Milford Gym to cover this team this season, it's certainly been our pleasure to bring you coverage of these winter teams this year. And we also want to, again, extend congratulations to the boys indoor track team and also the Milford boys swim team, who both claimed Davenport Division titles and also have had very strong showings at the Hockomock League Championship. So it's been a very good winter season across the board. As the final seconds tick down on this basketball season, and that is that. Milford takes care of business here in the final day of the regular season, and they defeat the Tantasqua Warriors once again. The 4th straight year that Milford has beaten Tantasqua, as they take care of this game tonight by a final score of 68-59. And so that allows Milford to end the regular season on a high note. It will allow Milford to finish up with an overall record of 9-12. And this team now heads into the offseason with a lot of underclassmen ready to put in the work to start building towards the 2019-2020 winter sports season. But that will wrap up our coverage here in the gym, and it'll be an elongated hiatus for us in terms of our sports coverage. We'll be back with you in about a month or so as we will get started with spring sports coverage for this 2018-19 season. We look forward to talking to you then. Until that time, for our director for the game today, Rob O'Keefe, and our camera operator, Scott Crisafulli, I am Tim Coette. That final score, one final time, Milford defeats the Tantasqua Warriors by a final score of 68-59. This has been a presentation of Milford High School Athletics here on Milford TV. So long, everybody.